Crude oil theft. How else? What else can be done about this? Well, we've got some more perspective. Elvis Dunkemezwe joins us as well today, negotiator and consultant, also an N.Delta Youth Leader. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
Well, speaking about this, I mean, Vozere, my colleague, has said, look, this has been on for a long time before a lot of youths were born. But some youths also in the area on a regular basis being co-opted to join in the fray. And some of them, if not most, cannot resist this because it's a huge industry. It's someone who doesn't have any job. What do you expect of them? So a lot of pressure. Communities come in here. Do you think communities will in any way, or have they in any way helped this cause, curbing crude oil theft?
Well, curbing it should be the right word, because ending crude oil theft had become an endemic in our society today. As the case may be, the second speaker, the professor, makes a lot of sense in suggesting for modular refineries, as the case may be, because looking at the rising case of crude oil theft in the region, it has become a moral decorum for people within the Niger Delta state, where they grow up and look at their society, their environment, as to what is obtainable slightly. Today, the benchmark for getting job opportunities in Nigeria is the BLC or HND, as the case may be. But in a more developed society, people had been able to educate their society that you don't need to even go to school to become sufficient in the society. And then if we translate this into modular refineries, people could create jobs for themselves and also pay revenue to state. You know, and it's so pathetic to have state government isolate themselves from issues that has to do with managing the rising cases of crude oil theft, because 80% of Nigeria revenue comes from crude oil. And then if states depends on federal allocations to survive and run state activities, therefore states should be much concerned on how to curb crude oil cases.
What about the communities? What do you think is the thinking of youths there with respect to this
fight? Community will not be able to participate fully because we do not have the direct legislative power to participate. That is why we have always advocated for adequate legislation by empowering the community to be able to participate in the productions of their crude oil.
Yeah, but some also participate in the wrong way. We've had lots of oil industry folks talk about the fact that this pipeline vandalism, theft done in the region, some youth involved.
If you look at the arithmetics of crude oil case, Nati had said about 1.4375 trillion naira has been stolen from crude oil in the past 3 years. And then if you look at those indices, you understand that the illegal bunkering activities within the Niger Delta state, the preference rate of bunkering is so small compared to what is being stolen from the country. So you understand that those who comes to steal this oil comes from the urban centers. For you to own a vessel that could steal about, Nigeria say they lose about, from NATI's report, that they lose about 120,000 barrels of crude oil in a day. If you multiply that times a barrel, 156 barrel, $156 per barrel, that's about 150. Well, that's about $179 billion in a day. So you can understand that for those who come into the region with huge vessels to steal crude oil, cannot be people within the local communities.
Why
at not? At most, looking at the illegal bunkering points within the communities, at most production in a day is about 500 barrels of crude oil in a day that they can mine. I was speaking to a fortnight ago, one of the IOC's directors, and he said 500, let us assume in estimation, 500 liters, 500 barrels of crude oil in a day from those illegal bunkering points. If you multiply that to, let's assume within the Niger Delta state we have 100 points. That's about 50,000. That's about 50,000. So if you assume, which we do not have, compared to the places where there's higher level of illegal bunkering going on in the Niger Delta. So you can understand that majority of the oil, crude oil theft cases are those vessels coming into the region with huge capacity to steal this oil. You cannot own a vessel in this country without passing through the regulatory organs that satisfy vessel operating within Nigeria territory. A vessel is not what we can buy for 1 million or 2 million or 10 million. It amounts into billions. So therefore, you must understand that it's like a circuit issue. Banks finance those vessels. Banks finance those vessels. And those vessels is
they finance them assuming they were going about legitimate business.
Let me land. Before a bank can finance a vessel that could steal about 20 to 30, that's a huge vessel. Before a bank can finance a vessel, that account must have history.
Yes, but if a bank is financing my vessel, am I going to tell the bank I'm using this for illegal banking?
That's what I'm saying.
I'll be registered for legit
that's what I'm saying.
business.
Organs who are meant to checkmate the processes of crude oil theft are meant to follow these suggestions that we are making.
Do you know some people involved in this?
Well, they are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and I. You know, so I can only advocate for my own people because I'm from oil producing community, and then I understand the fact that you cannot discuss crude oil theft without discussing the surrounding issues of crude oil theft.
Well, you heard about maybe alleged names of some of the persons behind some of these activities?
We can't say it is not written in your face if you do crude oil.
But you know how these things work.
No, but
it doesn't have to be written. You know how.
No, but of course, it doesn't have to be written. But what I'm saying here is that we should be able to curb crude oil theft by encourage adequate legislation to empower community to protect oil pipeline within their environment.
You know, when you talk about protection now, sorry, Mark, communities.